everyone. Welcome back to Highly Inspired. I'm Ella.
I'm Jordan.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're on take three, so we apologize. Um, it's been a long night. We are readjusting to doing remote recordings again. It's been a really long time. I'm having really severe flashbacks to our wine night on a few episodes back where we kept spilling wine and we were on Clubhouse and we took like three different takes and we weren't recording and basically, but we got it figured out now. At least I hope. So Jordan and we apologize that we have not been with you guys for the last 2 months. We've been very busy graduating college, moving out of our house in California, moving into separate states for the time being, and trying to get our lives somewhat organized. So it's been pretty
Yes,
wild.
we
Yeah.
have. I mean, not only is this episode slightly a mess as of now, but I guess recently with the podcast, it's been put on the back burner, I would say, but for good reason because we had a lot going on with finishing school and finals and trying to be as present as possible throughout all of those, I guess, nearing end moments because you don't get that back. So I'm glad that we decided to do that. And yeah, moving, what we've now learned is such a process, especially now that I would say, oh, like that was our first adult move, like moving out of a house that
Mhm.
wasn't with our families. It was like
Yeah.
all our stuff. It was such a process and so exhausting in so many different ways. But we're done with it now. And I'm so glad because yeah, it was a shit show to say the least.
Yeah. And the goal was to have our last podcast to wrap up our senior year, like in the actual house, in our studio, our kitchen. You guys are very
That's where it
familiar
all
with that setup.
started.
Yeah, it literally started in that room, and you guys know the story if you've been listening. And unfortunately, our evil landlord, which you might know about him from previous episodes, we'll get into the story later, but he ruined our entire move out process and totally kind of kept us from being able to do this last recording essentially. So here we are today and we're trying to make it happen for you guys. So do not complain on the YouTube channel
Yeah,
comments
we don't want to
that it's
hear it.
remote because we love you guys and we will never stop doing this. So just accept with what we have. But yeah, Jordan and I kind of want to start off with just kind of recapping the last few months. We have enough stories, I think, to fill a book with what we've been up to and just kind of experiencing. I think the first thing that I don't know, I kind of wanted to talk about was, I guess, fast forwarding all the way back to April when we went to Joshua Tree and literally off-roaded. Like it wasn't like we did the glamping or the nice Airbnbs with the pools. No, like we were in full-on tents and cars and off the road for an hour plus. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how fall semester for us when California was on complete strict lockdown. I mean, we tried to do things, but it wasn't like we had the whole inventory of places to go and activities to do and restaurants to eat at. It was very limited. And then this semester, we did have more stuff open, but we still decided to do a trip that was off the grid and no connection to anything. So I don't think I really realized that at the time, but yeah, this trip to Joshua Tree, that was my first time there. We went with a big group of friends. We listened to our friend's band play live for the first time since before the pandemic, which was a little nostalgic to what we used to have, but it was also like kind of a rebirth to
Normalcy.
normalcy and to music because that was my first live music experience at all since before the pandemic, honestly, even before that, like probably 2019. So it was so refreshing. But yeah, the where we stayed and how we actually lived for those 2 days was pretty grotesque, and I just got home and I blew out like dirt from my nose for like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I mean, it really put Coachella into perspective. It made Coachella look like Coachella experience, which was, by the way, in a crusty motel. It made that look like a 4-star experience because we were pretty much like sleeping on blankets in the dirt in the middle of nowhere. But it was such a great experience. Like, I can't remember the last time that I went camping, or even when I've gone camping, or when we went up to Big Sur, which was basically camping, like we still had Wi-Fi and our service and our phones, and we were very much in nature, but we still were connected to this digital world. And when we went to Joshua Tree, I felt like I was back in like the 80s when my parents grew up, and you couldn't text people to coordinate, and you couldn't call to get help. Jordan and I literally bought walkie-talkies for this, because we knew, like, okay, what if someone's car breaks down that's behind you? What if XYZ? And that ended up happening. Like, people's cars, tires blew up. Jordan's car got stuck in a ditch. Like, there was a lot of stuff that went into making this concert happen. And it was really funny, because when the concert even came up, everyone was still nervous about COVID. I remember in like the invitation for the concert, they said like wear masks and stuff. And then once everyone was out there, no masks, hugs, like no capacity limits. We were outside, beautiful, like the stars. I mean, we'll throw some pictures up, but it was absolutely incredible. And Jordan's 100% right. It was the beginning of returning to normalcy, and just people not stressing out about COVID and not altering their behavior, and just living life and enjoying those live experiences that we had been robbed from for the last year, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, going off-roading, going off the grid like that comes with risk. And I think that we were all willing to take that, which is kind of what made it so fun, because it just adds another level of adrenaline to the whole plan, to the whole idea. So I'm very glad that we survived. I'm glad we didn't get abducted by any UFOs, because that's like where it would land. It was complete Area 51 level stuff. And my car survived. So I'm very grateful for that. But I would say that weekend was the start of us sort of getting into this bender mode, where it was like every weekend counts so strongly right now, and we need to really strategize. Okay, how do we want to spend this time? Every weekend needs to have something every single day of that weekend, and even during the weekdays, if we can make it happen, needs to be fulfilled with as much as we possibly can. So that's kind of coincidentally, that's when our podcast recording started to level off a little.
It was pretty much right around that time that we went to Joshua Tree, coming off the tail end of our spring break trip. We went to Catalina Island, which was just a little short ferry ways away, and stayed there for a night or two, which was really awesome. But yeah, the Joshua Tree was definitely not the Tim Dillon lesbian household Airbnb experience where everything's beautiful. Like, when we were driving out, I was so excited. We had like 10 cars that we were caravanning out together. I was like, great. Like, I got enough water, I got enough food, like we're ready to go. Kid you not, 5 minutes into the journey, Jordan's car gets stuck in a ditch of sand.
It was like
quicksand. She can't get her wheel out of it. And luckily, this is right about when we're about to lose service. And I text in our huge group chat, and I go, SOS, Jordan's car is stuck. Thank God I sent that text, because our friends who go to USC whipped their asses back and came and had to tow Jordan's car out of the sand with their huge Jeep, because like there was no way we were going to get that out. Like, they're absolutely.
No, if he hadn't had a tow hook, there was no way my car could have gotten out unless I called AAA, which, as you know now, Ella, which we knew at that time, would have been so much harder and would have wasted basically the rest of the day.
Oh.
So I am so grateful for that. And that just goes to show, I guess, investing in a four-wheel drive, like heavy duty car like that, is actually a good investment with those types of trips, because you want to be around people who know what to do. It's not just the vehicle. You got to know how to use the vehicle. And yeah, it is a skill set. And now I'm like incentivized to learn more about it. And I want to be able to do that. I guess maybe to be the hero in those circumstances, because it's scary.
Yeah, it was at least we were like early on and we were able to connect with the guys to come back. But like you said, I had to deal with AAA the next day with a different vehicle. So my friend
which had a way
Simone,
worse ending.
yeah, this was a oh my gosh. I mean, it could have been worse, but basically, our friend Simone comes out in a Honda Civic, right? Mind you,
First bad decision.
yeah,
Horrible
mind you,
decision.
like this is an hour and a half journey off-roading to get to an unknown destination that the only way you can map it is through coordinates, right? And they just excuse me, they decide to come in the middle of the night. It is pitch black. It is whatever. All they have are these coordinates. They almost make it to the spot and the tire goes out. Luckily, they were able to like walk the rest of the way and come for the concert and stay the night, etc. But the next morning, I mean, I was stuck at Denny's for 3 hours trying to help figure it out. And it was,
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
literally.
But yeah, anyways, but it was really fun. And shortly after that, our friends ended up having like a second concert at their house for their birthday. And that whole week gave Jordan and I this opportunity to film this film project that I've been wanting to do all year that kind of centered around all of our friends and kind of channeling that entrepreneurial spirit and how we've all kind of cross collaborated with each other. I mean, we got into that a lot with the episode with Cam and Andres, but the film was really to highlight that. And I had never shot anything with professional film equipment. I mean, you guys might not realize this, but we literally shoot the podcast with an iPhone, even though it's 4K.
Not
So
this
Jordan
episode, but our other
no,
ones for sure. Yeah.
our other ones for sure. So like Jordan and I were using a full-on camera set. I mean, this camera was huge, super nice, multiple tripods. We had a mic going, we had all this gear, and there was a lot of trial and error at the beginning, but then once we figured out, we like got it down to a science.
No, I
So
had so much fun because just handling equipment like that you know is so nice and that can make high quality content is such a fun treat to have. Like I mean,
yeah, for
thankfully we were
sure.
able to have access to that stuff, but I think also that just the entire process of being at each location and being with our friends and sort of constructing how we wanted that vibe to be, and in each location was a different set, different whole background, aesthetic. So it was fun playing around with that, and then also like us getting to work together on something else that wasn't podcast related. That was new, and I think we both just learned a lot from it. Ella,
Oh
you
yeah.
more than me, but I definitely did for the
Yeah,
areas
we
that I could
both
help out in.
learned a lot and it was a great experience. And that again, like that was part of I think what's really important about college is it's not just about, the classroom and like your major and your minor, but it's what do you want to do with your time? Like, do you want to start a podcast? Do you want to make a video? Do you want to sell art? Do you want to make a website? Right. And I think that all those things sound really intimidating. Like, oh, I can't do that until I have a job asking me to do that and fulfilling that. But all it takes is like figuring out, okay, who do I know that has this type of equipment? Okay. What programs can I cheaply get to make a website? All these things that are the touch of your fingertips, that is part of college. Like that is a huge part of it. And no school is going to tell you that it is. It's about you making those decisions and implementing those things into your life and being like, I have an idea and I'm going to actually go through and execute it. So I'd say that was a huge lesson that I learned in college and a huge like nugget of wisdom that I want to share to people and especially like any younger listeners. And it pretty much kept happening up until our last moments with this film, which was really awesome.
Hmm.
Um,
Now that you just said that,
I
Ella, it
think
kind of
that, yeah.
takes me back to thinking. So what Ella and I have been talking about a lot, especially with the last semester, and what we realized through being back out in the world and doing fun things and socializing, is that you do really have to like curate moments sometimes, and those, if curated properly and planned properly and anticipated and and put like effort and energy into them. Those are the moments that you really remember a lot. But it also kind of goes, I think that same theme plays a role in what you just said about like professional outlets and giving yourself opportunities to build certain skills. You can't just wait around for opportunities to like appear to you and come out of thin air. You kind of have to go out and find it, and you have to curate those opportunities to grow those skills too. So I think that they kind of mirror each other in a very similar way, where if you put the effort in and you plan and you strategize, like you can not only benefit and grow your skills, but it's the same way with like going out and socializing and having fun events that you'll
Oh, for
remember
sure.
forever.
It's totally, it's doing and not being passive, and a really great example of that. And being it can be spontaneous too. Like it can be spontaneous, but if it is spontaneous, you have to do it right then and there. You can't wait around. And one moment of that was, I think it was the beginning of May, and Tim Dillon tweeted LA tonight. And mind you, this is like still like the heat of like California is still not reopened, at least to my knowledge, fully. So this is like, okay, like are comedy stores open there? Like what's going on? Like this kid Tim just moved to Texas, and through, you know, he moved to Texas with the intent of doing comedy there because it's open there, and California is a dead zone. So I'm like, okay, what's happening? So I do a little internet research, and I find out that Tim and some other comedians, Bill Burr, some other guys are doing a show in LA. And I immediately ask my boyfriend, like, do you want to go? Like, it was on his birthday. And we drunkenly bought tickets like within seconds, and we just made the decision to go. And then that later that night, I was with our friend Kimber, and I was like, dude, you gotta like look at this lineup, like you have to come. And he went. And when we got there, I kind of, at the end of the semester, I fell in love with Los Angeles, which was kind of a weird experience because I had been really bearish on California, specifically areas like Los Angeles. And I still think that there's a lot of work that the city needs to do to get out of this slump that it's been in with COVID and what Newsom's done and all that. But I kind of had a rebirth of my love for that city in that last month. And it started with going to this comedy store where no one was wearing masks. Everyone was close together. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was ready to move on. And it was young people, and people were ready to go out. And it was another one of those moments like the Joshua Tree thing where I kind of was like, hey, this is something that is so pre-COVID, and it felt like a little bit of that normalcy returning. And I realized that Jordan and I had talked about, we aren't like a long time ago, like almost a year ago now, that we aren't going to have this moment where everything just gets to be reopened and the gates of heaven are reopened and we're back to what it's like. We're going to have these small mini battles where we win. And there was another moment. Yeah. Like when we were at Albertsons, there was another moment like that. And that's what this is. And so seeing those little wins was a great way to finish off the school year as well, especially being in California.
It's funny you say that about changing your perspective on LA as of right now, because one of our most recent episodes was just completely bashing LA. And hey, we can change our opinions as we grow and as we keep revisiting experiences in places like LA, Orange County, Arizona. Because yeah, when you don't live in a place 24/7 and you go and can revisit it with a different perspective, like you're analyzing it from that, like from what you're seeing and viewing at that moment.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, I never, as much as I am naturally, I think I am more stuck in my beliefs. I've been trying so hard this year to not be like that and be open to understanding way more perspectives that I never even thought that I could have. And so I think you're right. By being like, okay, right now in this moment in time, I think California sucks. And then to relook at it 6 months later and to be like, okay, well, maybe parts of it weren't as bad. Or to be like, oh, I'm 100% in. I want to move to Texas, New York and California. They're never coming back. maybe they will, maybe they won't. It's gonna always be shifting, and you have to always look at it with a new set of eyes. So it's really nice to be able to do that. Tim absolutely killed it. I'm gonna give him a shout out right now. If you have the chance to see him live, please do. I basically am following him because I lived in California when he lived in California. Now I moved to Texas, and I was so excited to see him at some like local shows here. Unfortunately, he's coming back to California. Maybe I'll have to chase him. I don't really know, but
Wait, that
it
is
was
funny.
great.
Yeah. Well, he was in Austin. You're in Houston, but still, you
Still, I
totally.
was thinking I was gonna like drive over there for the night and see a show. I almost went to a San Antonio show this weekend, but I was like, oh, we have all summer. Like he's gonna live here now.
I listened to his episode, his announcement episode yesterday, and he said he's not moving out right away. That he's going to be on tour, and then he's planning
That's
on moving
true.
at least at some point this year. But that could be promising. Like maybe
Yeah,
while he's there, like in downtime and not being on tour,
shows.
he could maybe be there.
Yeah, that would be really cool. We'll see. I
You
mean,
might not be there
regardless,
though, which is kind of sad.
yeah. I mean, regardless, I did get to see him. I did get to see him once, which was awesome, and I'm grateful for that. So that's that.
Yeah.
But then what else? What else did we do?
I did try to
Jordan,
go, by the way. I just want to let the audience know. I
yeah,
tried.
Jordan
Once Ella
did.
told me they're playing, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna try to find tickets. They were already sold out. I even like
It sold
bought
out like in
I bought the
this.
$50 wait list fee too, just to see, because I actually knew that I mean, you don't get to travel the country to go follow someone. And I felt like that was the best, honestly, probably opportunity that I would get to maybe go see
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. He'll be back though. He's gonna be in Irvine at the end of the month, and then when he moves to California, who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, that was awesome. And I don't know, kind of I feel like the next big event was this. We went on a boat because we live by the water, and we did it for Jordan's birthday. Well, a month before
Yeah.
her birthday.
I
Yeah.
can explain the reasoning behind that. I have a summer birthday, and I actually just celebrated my actual birthday a couple days ago. But throughout all of college, when everyone goes away home for the summer and out of Orange County, out of like the Chapman vicinity, I was never able to celebrate my birthday with anyone, and that was sad because I'm not someone who really cares that much about birthday stuff. But I feel like the group that we sort of curated at school and never getting to have at least one celebration for it always made me like frustrated. So I was like, this year we're changing that. Now it's open. My friends want to do stuff. So we got a speedboat, which was an upgrade from the Duffys that we routinely got for like years. But it was one of the best days I've ever had in my entire life. Like, and Ella, I know you can agree because we talked about this, but
Yeah.
I don't say that all the time. I feel like this particular day slash that moment and having been so cooped up last year and not, and I mean, you couldn't have done that in California. I'm pretty sure even like the private boat owners weren't doing stuff like that where you could rent.
No.
So all the stars aligned for this one. And there really weren't any caveats except I got thrown off. I got thrown off the boat. It was pretty much my own fault. It wasn't like someone pushed me, but I was like trying to get to like the bow of the boat to like take a photo or to say hi to some of our friends. And there was a lot of wake when we had anchored. And this one like wave totally pushed the boat like
And
way
pushed
harsher
her
than it
off.
normally did. But I like had my hand on this pole, and like in my other hand I had like a drink and
Post Malone
my phone was in
2.0.
my pocket. I flew off kind of like Jesus Christ the water, and then my phone just totally slipped out of my pocket, fell to the bottom of the sea.
Jordan, what does this remind us of?
It reminds me of the Post Malone night.
Yep.
That was the same motion. Like I kind of had PTSD. It was the same
Yeah,
arm
it
too.
was the same arm. I mean, I don't know if we saw this episode up, but Jordan, our freshman year, first semester of college, we went to a Post Malone concert. It was really intimate. There was maybe less
It was
than
like a
100 people
club.
there.
Like it
It was
wasn't
like
a
a club. It
venue.
wasn't like a venue. And so Jordan is short, and she wanted to see Post Malone. And so she decided to get up on a chandelier and like like with one, like two drinks in one hand, chandelier hand in the other.
I was trying to get a
And
video. I had like
well, there
three
was
bottles in my hand plus my phone and my fingers.
there was a lot going on. Anyways, long story short, the chandelier fixture broke and she fell down
I
over this
fell
entire
easily
table.
10 feet because this light fixture was like supporting all of my body weight at that point. And it was
Yeah.
like slow motion, that like Sia song, like flying from the chandelier. I completely flew on my back on top of a table that was like a privately bought table. Like I know they spent a lot of money on it. And meanwhile, since I had the drinks in my hand, I spilled beer on the tops of all their heads. And they just like looked at me as I fell and started cursing at me, calling me like the worst things I've ever been called before. And then I
Yeah.
got like a bouncer light shined on my face, like telling me to get out, and I got thrown out. Ella, you know that story. I wish you could have seen
I
it,
know
but honestly, the boat, that like motion of
was
me
the same
falling, it
thing.
was the same exact thing.
It's really funny because I consider myself to be like the more clumsy out of the two of us. And I did the same thing. Like I had my phone in my pocket and I walked to the front of the boat. And I don't know if it was because there wasn't like a huge wake when I did it, but I was literally right before you, Jordan, when you did. And I ended up, hopefully, I hope it's not your bad luck flaring up again. Let's not go
No,
on.
that was just an unfortunate wave that hit the boat, and I just didn't have enough like grip on my hand. I don't know, but I had Apple Care, so I was able to get a new phone, and that was the only phone that I lost in the last 2 years. My freshman and sophomore year of college, I lost like 3 or 4, not even kidding, through thefts and music festivals. But I was on a roll, so I need to keep the roll up, except for that one little hiccup. But yeah,
Yeah, no, that
fortunate.
was really funny. And then later that night, we were all like very just tired and delusional. And we ended up back at our friend's house, and Jordan decided to start our own a cappella group.
Yeah, I don't think you could call it a cappella if it's a solo, but
I think
my solo a cappella.
oh my gosh, she
I'm not
was driving.
attaching any videos of that, but
We are attaching a video. It's so funny. Jordan was keeping this in our entire guy friend's house up till like 2 a.m. with her screaming into a
well,
microphone and making like beatbox
I was
noises.
and I don't even remember. I truly don't remember because I was sitting there. I had no phone. Wasn't like I could call an Uber. I was kind of like up to the discretion of everybody else that I was with. And my like kneecap was also like fully scraped because when I got off the boat, I was so hammered that I like fell, and on the concrete, like my knee got fully scraped. And so when we got back and I was just sitting there, like blood was just like rolling down my leg. And I say this because I am not a mess. I really am not like that all the time. But I think that certain days like that where you don't even care what the casualties are. You're just gonna do
Enjoy the
you,
day.
enjoy it. And
Yeah.
honestly, it was completely worth it. But I did annoy you guys with singing like that, and I'm so sorry.
No,
Especially to
I mean,
like Matt, who I know didn't deserve to have to listen to that for like 2 hours because I don't even really remember it. I was
I think he
definitely
actually got a kick out of it. I fell asleep. I was like, I'm just gonna peace out. I don't know
I
how
don't
I
even think
slept
you
through
made
it,
the
but I
decision to
did.
fall asleep. You just completely passed out.
Oh my gosh. Well, this was okay. This was the last day that Jordan and I were 100%. We're not going to get into all of our theories about it because we don't want people to think that we're weirdos or conspiracy theories. But basically, Jordan and I got really, really sick, unfortunately, after this whole boating experience, which was so frustrating because we went this entire year living our lives, not really following the COVID stuff. I stopped wearing my masks in California. Like I just completely stopped
Yeah,
because
same.
I I mean, but when Biden was saying this in the CDC, we're like, no more masks, people are vaccinated, etc. I didn't understand like why is California still locked down with the mask? I was just done. So Jordan and I kind of stopped wearing our masks, but we this whole year have been going out, living our lives on planes, traveling, etc. This is actually the only semester that I didn't take a plane. Before that, during COVID, I was traveling all over Europe, traveling all over the US, doing all these things, and never got sick even once, even with the cold. And after this boat experience, where we're only with 10 of our closest friends, we're outside, beautiful sunshine the entire day, vitamin D. Jordan and I and our entire friend group got this weird illness that wasn't no one got it wasn't COVID. No one tested positive for COVID, but it wasn't like a normal cold either. And it was so frustrating getting it this last month of school where you're supposed to be doing finals and ending on a strong note with your grades and wrapping up like any internship that you're doing and doing all these social things. And we were just completely out of commission for about at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was out of commission like very, very severely for like 4 days. And I remember like three of my most important presentations that I had been preparing for ahead of time. When it came to those days that I actually had to do it, I sounded horrible. I was completely hoarse. Couldn't breathe out of my nose. And I haven't felt like that since before the pandemic. I never got COVID. I never had COVID even during the most peak times in Arizona and in California. And then throughout all this past semester, the most that I'd ever done, being busy 24/7, going out multiple days a week, going on trips every other weekend, like it was a lot, and I still hadn't gotten sick. So for us to get that cold when we did at the most inconvenient time, for everything else with school wise, it was really frustrating. And yeah, it kept us up for multiple nights just like talking about how exactly that happened. And I'm not even a hypochondriac. Ella, you aren't either. Normally we wouldn't freak out over something like that, but it definitely raised a
It
lot of
was so
red
out of the
flags.
blue.
It was just really it was frustrating, and we were kind of like the only ones that had that at that time. And a lot of our friends didn't. So we were confused.
Well, no,
And
actually, our friends. So this is the thing: is that our friends did. So actually, a few of our friends did not. Um, and then I started finding out that like people had been starting to get this, right? So like what I found out was like, oh, like we found out that a lot of people actually were having this. And we thought that we were all alone. And then we started having conversations with people, and I was like, hey, like, why are you coughing? Like, why are you like, why do you sound weird, you know? And then we'd find out, oh, I'm getting over this illness, or oh, I just have this illness. And everyone had this cold, and no one, except for really me and Jordan and a few other friends, thought it was even remotely weird that we were all getting sick. And I don't even to this day know what it was. I don't know if people's immune systems were down because the world was reopening. I don't know if there's a different strain. I don't know if, you know, with the vaccine, people have side effects and they're more run down and they're getting people sick. To this day, I don't know. And it was weird because, and we're not talking about this to complain. I'm actually talking this from like a point of curiosity. And actually, if
yeah,
you
me
guys
too.
have had this, please comment in the YouTube sections or comment on Instagram, because I'm actually trying to kind of get a better sense of who's had this and kind of what age group and stuff. And we'll kind of run through the symptoms as well. But I talked to my friend at Santa Clara, and they all had the same thing. Talked to my friend at U of A, they all have the same thing. Talked to my friend at Syracuse, they all have the same thing. So all these colleges are having this weird illness simultaneously, and no one, like the health centers aren't identifying it. It's not strep, it's not the flu, it's not COVID. And to this day, it was very strange because I didn't even know how to treat it. I mean, I took zinc and vitamin D and a lot of supplements, but there wasn't any antibiotic. There wasn't any sort of Z-Pack or whatever. I think that if I were to go even to an urgent care, they would have looked at me like they wouldn't know how to fix it because it just felt so uncharted. I don't know. It kind of felt
Yeah.
like a head fog, and then just like it started with a weird sore throat, and then it was these head fogs that you would get, and then your voice just completely went away, and then it was a intense cough. But like, yeah, like I said, no one was testing positive for COVID, so it was really strange.
Yeah, I had a little bit different than Ella, but yeah, definitely same with the throat and then the head fog. And then I just felt very fatigued. I didn't feel like
Yeah.
myself. And I had a cough for a little bit, although it did go away eventually. And yeah, it was like every single person that I would come across that was like, wait, yeah, I've had that. I'm getting over something too. And then it just like this light bulb flies up on the top of my head of like, oh my gosh, yeah, same. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's try to figure this out. And I'm sure with now the vaccine, with so many people having got the vaccine by now, I think that there's just a lot of immune system variations that are happening across all of America, across the world, because that's what happens when not only of a new virus faces us, but then the vaccine, it's like the next step
In the way
of
the
all of
vaccine
our
is
immune
made.
systems
Yeah.
having to readjust to what's happening. So I think
Yeah.
that seems like the most reasonable and logical, I guess, explanation for what we dealt with. We're totally good now. But yeah, it's a weird feeling sitting there and thinking, even if I did go to a doctor, they wouldn't 100% explicitly know how to prescribe me right now. They wouldn't know what to say. And that's scary because it's so uncharted. And even like Ella, I think that you and I know a good amount about health. Like you and I have been through things that have taught us about immune system and have taught us about proper health care. Although, yeah, you could argue that there's no perfect like green light like regimen for
Yeah.
any person because we're all so different. But yeah, I was scared because I was like, I don't 100% know what to do. I'm just trying to like listen to my body. I know what I can eat or what I shouldn't eat or what supplements to take, but beyond
No,
that, like you
Jordan,
don't have
yeah.
full control.
No, and I felt what's crazy is, and obviously everyone's going to feel different because health is become somewhat subjective and everyone has a different um, health background and history and age and all that stuff. But for me and my health, I had worked so hard, like Jordan mentioned, we both worked so hard to get our immune systems on track. And I had a really strong faith in myself that I could, through this entire pandemic, I was like, I know I can fight off COVID. Therefore, I am not going to be fearful of living my life and smiling and seeing people's faces and hugging my friends and experiencing the world because
You don't want to miss out on those moments.
I don't want to miss out. I don't even want to miss out on a day. Like the fact that we were willing to give up a year plus, still we're going through this, like absolutely not. Like I
Early
don't
20s that we'll never
like
get back.
Steve Jobs, I mean, he said, live every day like your last day. And if we were to have listened to that during COVID, like we wouldn't have gone through what we wouldn't have given up what we had given up, right? And so I was not going to do that. Pretty much by May, I wasn't going to do that. And you can go back and listen to Jordan's episode on that, on our opinions. But so this whole year I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared of getting sick. I was confident that I could handle COVID and that my body would be able to fight it off. And here I was getting this illness that I can't even identify. And I was finally scared for the first time in this entire pandemic process. And that
Same.
was so
Same.
crazy to me. Maybe it gave me some perspective to people that actually were more at risk with COVID. And it was very interesting, but it was very interesting to be in that position where finally, after all this time that we're supposed to be reopening, we're supposed to be embracing people and getting back to normal, that now all of a sudden I'm scared. And Jordan and I took a week off of pretty much doing anything. Like
Of
I could
life.
barely have enough muster up enough college or enough energy to do these presentations, and we didn't go to the bars during our last week of finals and when everyone was celebrating the end of college. We saved our energy and we saved it for this night called it was at this tiki bar that we had done this event a year prior called Freaky Tiki. That was one of my favorite nights in college. And we've talked about it on this podcast so many times.
Yeah,
And it's
which
been,
was a risk that we went out that night, but
yeah,
we weighed the pros and cons. We were like, you know what? We sat out last night and this is our last weekend before finals. We have to do this. And I had a little voice in the back of my head that was like, this isn't perfectly the way that I wanted it to be, but I have to because I'll regret it and I will feel horrible horrible if I don't. But I didn't even want to be in that position. I didn't even want to have that voice in my head, because before coming down with that cold, which I guess that cold is only word that we could call it since we don't even know what it is, that was the only time that I had felt nervous and scared. Before, like any other time in COVID, I hadn't at that level before. Maybe like the very first week, but like that was it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I
So it was a
definitely
bummer.
past May, I didn't feel that way anymore. So it was a bummer, and luckily we got out of it. And once we were starting to feel better, we went to this tiki bar. It was another Nomo event, which was really fun, and we got to hear our friends perform live, not only in an outdoor remote venue, but in an actual indoor venue where we're all close together and we're all spilling drinks on each other, and there's mosh pits going on, and it was awesome. Like,
it was
shout
sick.
Out to
it was like the best.
bar.
It was the best indoor show that I've been to of theirs, and you and me, like I was very front row, and I was just taking it all in. I actually ended up getting a little bit more intoxicated than I was planning on. I got sucked into doing tequila shots with this bartender lady that she was working her actual ass off the entire night, and I went up to her at the very end when people were like rolling out, and I just was like, I have to thank her. And I went up to her and I was like, you're working so hard, thank you. I appreciate this. I hope you had fun like listening to the music and stuff. And so we kind of got in this little convo, and then she was like, you know what, I need to give you some tequila. And I was like, okay, thank you. I thought she was kidding. She actually went to the back room and got this like hidden tequila. Or it wasn't hidden, it was like unopened. So it wasn't like she put anything in it. I would have made sure of that. But she poured me 2 tequila shots and then poured herself 2 tequila shots and was like, here, these are on me. These are on me. Here you go. And after like talking to her and all that, I was like, okay, I just have to. And they were free, so I wasn't gonna say now pour them out. But I did that, and that's what just sealed the deal for me that night. I'm happy I did in a way, but like also I wouldn't have done that on my own volition.
And this is where we get, and I think I prefaced this a little bit earlier, this is where we got to our guard dog dying, unfortunately.
His death.
Okay, well, before you think that Jordan's a crazy person, this dog is a fake dog. So his name is Bones. Was a fake dog. His name is Bones, and he is like a little skeleton wiener dog that's like a Halloween costume.
He's not like, he was a skeleton wiener dog that I stole from the movie theater when it was Halloween time. They had all these decorations up.
Jordan,
and it was like on the ground.
Yourself.
Hey, I'm just, the people want to know the background details, so I'm throwing it out there. We took him, and from that night, he sat on our front porch on one of our pillars, like facing the street, as in like he was the guard dog before you get onto our porch and enter our house. So out of all of the theft scandals that we've had with car break-ins or Joker mask people running on our street, and we lived next to a juvenile delinquent school
called the Friendly Center.
Out of all of that stuff, Bones lived. No one ever stole Bones. He was there probably because he was just so ugly. No one ever wanted to take him. But his death was that freaky tiki night a couple weeks ago. And I'm the culprit. I was the murderer. I can't even tell the story. I'll let you tell the story.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start from when I woke up. So I think I must have, I don't know. I came home in the morning and I see Bones literally dismantled. Like, it's not just like someone dropped him and he fell apart, or no, he is torn apart limb by limb by limb,
decapitated.
And I turn, I think my boyfriend dropped me off or something, and I turn to him and I pick him up and I go, like, what is happening?
Who did this?
And I come in and I talk to our other roommate, and I'm like, we have an enemy. Like, someone's out to get us.
This is a sign. This is a bad omen.
No, and it was because Jordan and I threw one of our like first pre-games that we had thrown in a really long time because of COVID. We hadn't been hosting people. And I'm like, this is it. Our evil neighbor who always rats on us is retaliating against us by destroying our guard dog. Like, this is the only logical explanation. So I'm having a freak out because I'm like, okay, people that destroy animals or dolls or toys, that's a sign of being a sociopath. So I'm like, who is a sociopath that's out to get us?
Wait, did you
So
do this research in that meantime, or had you
no,
already known that?
I just know my mom told me I was never allowed to hang out with kids that like destroyed toys or like tortured animals.
Interesting.
So I'm like telling my roommate like a sociopath is out to get us. So I come up to check on Jordan and she's kind of asleep and really dead. And I go, Jordan, someone killed Bones. And she's like, I think it was me.
I think, keyword on I think. I didn't know yet. It was still up in the air.
It was still up in the air. So then I send a text out to our friends and I go, does anyone know what happened to Bones last night? And our friends are like, oh, do we know what happened to Bones? So Jordan, do you want to tell the rest of the story or should I?
Well, so yeah, after I got up, and I honestly, once you came in and asked me that, I instantly like got up. I was like freaking out. But one of our friends sent a screen recording of a FaceTime call in which I was a participant of, and it was a long video. It started off with me and one of our friends who actually was the one to drive me home, and we were just out in the street like talking and whatever. It then transpired into me holding my phone, like I was a FaceTimer from my phone, and I walked out on the porch, and I think that my like subconscious brain saw Bones and was like, ooh, this is fun, like I'm gonna show like my friends this is Bones. Well, after doing that, something happened where I just decided to kick it. Like I drop kicked it into the middle of the street. And then I think it just really entertained me. And so I continued to kick it in all different directions, like fully taking its tail and like whipping it to the tarmac. And then
Jordan's not crazy, I promise.
No, I'm not an aggressive drunk. I am a respectful person.
The bartender put something in the tequila.
Maybe that was. I saw her open a new one, so maybe she like resealed it or something like that. But like 5 minutes into me beating Bones to the ground, I think it was P-Safe or the police, not 100% sure. It probably was the police because P-Safe was definitely off duty by then. Pulls up and I'm still just like beating up Bones. And then the guy's like, are you going to bed? Are you okay? And I'm completely alone at this point. Like my friend had left. So I'm just like on FaceTime with my friends. I think that's why I was like staying out there alone, which was not safe. But I then proceeded to like get into a conversation with the cop. I was talking to the cop for like 10 or 15 minutes. And meanwhile, all of our friends are on the other line, like hearing this phone call and the whole thing's on screen recording. So I'm so glad they got that. Like I would have never thought to do that. But, yeah, after that, I think I just went inside, and then Bones Remains stayed out in the street. That's what Ella saw. Like I didn't think to pick it up. At least I should have had the respect to do that, but I didn't, and I just went to bed,
I think they did actually get picked up, and some of them stayed on the street, but some of them did make it to the porch, and that's how I discovered it.
Okay. See, I'm still piecing it together to this day, but I feel guilty. Like once I saw that, I was like, what? Jordan, like I was the one. Why did I do that? I was obnoxious.
Well, R.I.P. Bones. We'll forever We'll forever have him in our hearts.
Yep. I guess that kind of brings up how like our landlord and his assistant would always get mad at us for having like any decorations up. Like if we had Christmas decorations or Halloween. They would always call us out on that. But Bones, they never called us out on it. So did they just not see it? Or I don't understand.
The day after the 4th of July, or I don't know, it was either 4th of July or Memorial Day, we had like flags, like patriotic US flags in our front yard. And I'm like walking back to the house and I see our landlord with him like being so rude, like telling his employees, like pointing at the flags and telling them to pick it up and throw it away. And by the way,
Like
like with
literally
American
throwing
flag,
away the American flag, even though they're
yeah,
mini
you're supposed
ones.
to burn them. You're supposed to burn them. You can't just toss them. So I come up and I'm like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just be. He's like, you're not allowed to have decorations. It's in your lease. So that's just a preface. That's who we're dealing with. We're dealing with anti Christmas, anti patriotic, anti Halloween man, evil, scary man
Honestly,
who,
anti-woman man too.
yeah, he's horrible. And he was like the reason, part of that whole fiasco with the moving out process was for the reason why we didn't get to record on our last day. But, anyways, we will get into that at a later date.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could talk about the move a little bit because
Yeah.
it started, I mean, we were the first ones out of our friends in circle at Chapman to like start moving. And mind you, our house has always been the absolute cleanest. Like truly we moved into a newly remodeled house that had like not even a
Yeah.
scratch on the walls. So we always knew from day one when we moved in there that we had like a lot of responsibility that we were signing up for in terms of taking care of the house and making sure that it was always clean because it had the type of interior design that you couldn't have a messy house. It just would have looked horrible. Like it was very small, and we
Yeah.
always just came to the conclusion that we wanted to make it a home, and by that you have to have it clean and comfortable. So we started early, but we still like for 10 days, every day was like another thing that we had to do, another thing we had to coordinate, going to get spackle materials from Home Depot and then paint and then do the stuff and then make sure that we had all of like the mover stuff coordinated. It's like every second that I thought we were done, we weren't done.
Oh,
And there was
no.
just more stuff that kept getting added on. And then all the way up to the final day where we were supposed to have our actual final walkthrough, getting shot down like that by our landlord's assistant at 8 a.m. in the morning after we had actually gotten an hour and a half of sleep was just like the cherry on top. I was so done. I was completely done.
Yeah, Jordan and I got back at 4 a.m. that night, like having our last night with our friends, and our landlord's coming at 8 a.m. And so I'm thinking, okay, like as long as we have everything like packed up for the most part. Okay, mind you, we were selling a lot of our furniture to the girls moving in because our house was like not even furnished. And by not furnished, I mean like we bought the refrigerator and the washer and dryer and everything in this house.
Wi-Fi, all
So
of it.
so we're like selling them all this stuff. And our landlord's assistant comes and immediately she's like, I'm not even gonna start the home inspection until you get all this furniture out. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I need the fridge out. I need the washer and dryer out. I need all the
I need to
couches.
inspect for leakage in the back.
I need my bed frame who I'm selling to the girl who's moving in. She's like, I need that disassembled, taken downstairs, and then you can bring it back up so I can check the wood floors are intact. And I go, can't we just move the bed over, check, look under the bed, move it back, check, we're good to go. No, that wasn't good enough. So Jordan and I were like, I don't know what this woman expected because it was 8 a.m. We were paying for our house until the end of the day. So we had like the entire day to like move the last few boxes out of the house and we were selling the furniture. So I don't know what she thought we were going to do.
She didn't
So
care.
after negotiating with her and whatever, we're like, fine, come back at 6 and we'll get the movers, we'll get everything out, we'll do it your way. So we agree. And the movers are like 3 hours late on us. So we're literally not done with this entire process until 9 p.m. the next day. And she had shot down. We had touched up the paint. We had like spackled. We had done a really good job. And she just shut down everything. Like we fixed the blinds. She wasn't having it.
Yeah,
Um,
she pushed back on everything, and she didn't give us a single thank you for all the work that we did. Not that we needed that, but we did a lot, and we paid for a professional cleaning company to come because we wanted to make sure the floors and even the walls that weren't getting repainted were like completely spotless. That turned out to be a waste of time and money because then they are now charging us for their cleaning. So it was a result of like a lot of miscommunication. And I think honestly, the biggest miscommunication with that was that she didn't explicitly tell us that everything had to be out of the house by the time of the final walkthrough. She was trying to do it like 5 days before our move out date. How could we have, was she expecting us to stay in a hotel for 5 days without any beds or mattresses or food? Like, I don't get what she was meaning by that. But at the end of the day, yeah, it pushed us back so that we had the walkthrough at the very last minute, and then I was just
I
done.
was already in
Drove
Texas.
drove home, and honestly, I really wanted to have like one final day where I didn't have to deal with the walkthrough, and that I could just really sit and reflect and enjoy it. Maybe do like a champagne toast and say goodbye, and then like be in my feels on my car ride home. But I didn't get that. It kind of like riled me up and it bummed me out, and it had drained me so much emotionally that like that drive home was like kind of not what I thought it was going to be. I wanted to have that like happy, reminiscent, emotional like mindset on my drive home, but I didn't. I kind of had like a slightly salty and kind of fed up,
I'm ready to get out of here.
fed up
Yeah.
mood. But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to
I,
sound like a brat, but yeah, that
no,
was the
no.
reality of it.
Yeah, it's fine and it's all good. Like we all survived and it's not the end of the world. I don't want you guys to think that we're complaining, but it is kind of a funny story because it kind of explains why we didn't get to do that last podcast because we had this whole kind of idea of how we wanted it to be in our last day in the house and kind of ride off that good emotional happy energy, and it wasn't there because the day
Hmm.
started off so badly and our landlord had different expectations than what we had expected. So
Yeah.
it all worked out and it's all good. We're now waiting patiently for our security deposit back, which,
Gosh.
I mean, you've seen our house, like you've seen in the video, it's pretty clean, like
You've
we
seen
we
that they've
take
seen the
the
kitchen at least for sure.
yeah. Yeah. So,
That was
I
where it
mean,
all started. There's so much um, tie of us with that house because this podcast might not have ever been a thing, and like Ella and I's friendship might not have been what it is today because, like, obviously being roommates, for anyone who's ever had a roommate before, you get very close to them, and not only in like a fun social friendship way, but also in like a cohabitant way because you learn how the other person lives. And like, yeah, we went through a lot, and I think moving also taught us a lot in terms of communication and like how to actually gauge your expectations when you're dealing with people who aren't really that cooperative. So I now know, like, for the next time, how to read my landlord, how to read the communication tactics and the responsiveness. And honestly, it's a red flag if your landlord or his assistant like don't even know how to spell and use proper grammar, because that's what we dealt with, and it turned out to be kind of a very telling factor in terms of like their communication and like expectations.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like we couldn't.
I don't think she ever sent a single text where one word wasn't misspelled. Like there was always some horrible grammar issue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like my biggest red flag was when we first were getting the house. They, we had wired the security deposit over. We had signed the lease, and they tried to say that it was invalid because they wanted to go with someone who paid up front. No, you can't do that. You can't let us wire you money and have us sign a contract and then say it's invalid. Like I took business law one. I took one business law class, and that's a valid contract, buddy. So like we kind of knew from day one. Like once that whole thing happened, it was like a war with this landlord. Like by the end, Jordan and I thought that we finally had won his respect by maintaining the house so well, by fixing it up, by hiring this professional cleaning crew
Putting life
and
into it.
putting
Like,
so much life into it, putting like literally putting a refrigerator in this house. And at the end of the day, it's sad when something's just business on the other end. Cause for me, that really was a home. And for me, I have so many memories there. And I still can't even process the fact that I won't be returning there in August. I don't think that it's hit me that there's other people that live there and that my room doesn't look like how it does. Um,
it hasn't hit
and
me yet either.
yeah, and I don't know when it will or if it ever will or if I'll just move on to the next thing. And that's the weird thing about ending these chapters in your life is that it's it's all about this beautiful marriage between the past, the present, and your future, right? And you don't want to give too much weight to any of them. Some days you're going to be way more focused on the past, so like when you're moving out and you're in a very reminiscent mode and you're sharing memories and you're crying with your
Yeah, and
friends,
you're
right?
welcoming in those flashbacks into your head.
Exactly. And you're going through photos and videos. And then some days you're going to have very present moments, right? Like us in Joshua Tree with no technology and just being there with our friends and our people and the music and the environment, right? And then you're going to have these moments where you're focused on your future. Like right now, I'm in future mode and it's stressful. I mean, I have this internship and I'm readjusting to like the 9 to 5 thing right now. And I'm in a new city temporarily. I'm in Texas, new culture, new weather, new living environment. I'm not living with Jordan in my own space. I'm living again with family. So it's a lot to kind of make sure that you don't get too in your head in one of those places. And it's great to visit those, but you don't want to stay in them for too long. You have to figure out how to marriage them together because ultimately planning for your future ensures a beautiful present, which then allows for great memories to be had. So that's kind of the goal. Like you have to kind of look at it like that. And I think I've been someone who gets stuck in the past or the future, and I never really taught myself how to be in the present. And college taught me that, and I'm really grateful. Sorry for that rant. That was
College
random, but
college definitely taught me that, and I would argue this semester more than any of the other ones too, because the pandemic really shut down so many of our future plans, and everybody understands that now. Because yeah, you never know what tomorrow holds, but being able to sort of get back to somewhat of a normalcy after that really just solidified. Oh my gosh, I need to be in the present as much as possible. I know that my college days are finite, so I'm gonna try to like live this while I have it. But yeah, I'm in the same boat right now. Now that it's summer and that we don't have that anymore, I'm trying to strategically look at my future and still not like dwell on it and not dwell on my past either. But I think that I'm trying to get better at it because I'm in a totally uncharted realm right now. I've never not had school. Like when you graduate and you know you're not going to go to grad school right away or whatever that is. I mean, for me, there's probably a 0.0001% chance that I go to grad school. So for me, those days are up, and I want to make sure that I don't know. It's just weird. It's so weird,
yeah, it is
but
weird.
it's also exciting.
It is exciting. I'm trying to get now out of like the sad mode and into the exciting mode. And I don't know if there's any other like college friends that we have listening to this or high school friends that graduated, but it is an exciting time and we should be excited for the next adventure. And I think um, COVID made it a little weird because it didn't make me super excited about um, moving to like LA or New York and doing that whole scene, even though that's what I wanted for a really long time. Now I might be a little bit more open to at least moving back to California because I'm seeing a lot of positive trends there. especially with kind of Orange County being a driving force for that. But I just, I don't know. It's like I feel like every, as we're getting back into this normalcy state, and it's been a fight. Like, I am so proud of everyone that has been fighting to get back to normal, fighting for medical consent. It also seems like that we're going in the right direction with this vaccine passport. I know it's something that we talked about.
Yeah.
It seems,
There's a resistance.
I don't want to jinx it, but I think that there's been enough of resistance for medical transparency and medical consent that we are moving into the direction that we're going to allow people to opt out of it if they want. And so I'm seeing a lot of positive things, but there's also still a lot of uncharted stuff, and we aren't fully out of this, and we haven't fully uncovered all the darkness yet. So, you know, you don't want to tread lightly, but you also don't want to live in fear. So it's like you're constantly trying to navigate that as we're graduating. So
I will say though, I feel so much better with where things are at, like economy wise and overall morale wise, as I look towards like the fall and this upcoming year in regards to like where I want to live and work and what I want to do, who I want to be around. I feel a lot better about things than I did in the fall of last year and last year's summer. Like that was,
yeah.
I don't, if I was graduating college last year, last May, I would have been freaking out. I would have been so terrified.
Yeah, I think that now we're back where we can kind of visualize things a little better and start to pick a path forward and kind of move along in that direction. And I kind of decided, and not everyone is in this position, so I'd say this with a grain of salt, but I had some money saved up, and I had an opportunity to take an internship in Texas, and something that I've been working on. You know, I was looking to get a full-time job as a real estate development analyst, and I ended up finding this internship that allowed me to be in development and investment and still do some financials, but also kind of get exposure to being more of like an assistant role. And so I get to have more exposure to like the design elements and different day-to-day kind of things. And it's been nice to kind of halfway transition where I like still have something to keep me busy, and I'm making like an hourly wage, but I'm not fully committed to anything yet. I'm not fully like in the full grind and like can fully foresee like, okay, this is where I'm living, this is what I'm doing for who knows how long. And I wasn't ready to make that decision in May. I wasn't like,
Yeah.
I didn't.
And I'm glad you didn't try to force it either.
Yeah.
I think
And
you made
that's
a
the
great
thing
decision.
I think one of the best things I can give people is truly like, you don't have to have, I am someone who is like a pro, like 5-year, 10-year plan person, but I think that it should always be room for shifting and room for adjustment. Just like Jordan and I said about how in the last 3 months, like the last 2 months, I fell in love with Los Angeles. Like that, you have to be open for that. You have to be open for things to be like, I'm totally done with this, or I want to reintegrate it. And it's the same thing with jobs, right? And so I think kind of having this time period where you can just be like, okay, I'm going to make the next decision for the next 6 months or the next year, and kind of break it down into those visual pieces makes those decisions a lot easier. Whereas if you're like, okay, I'm committing to this job for my whole life, like that's way more pressure and way more stressful.
You always need to stay in that gray area of being open to new types of realizations that you're having, because like I've given examples in the past too. I was almost not going to go back to Chapman in January or at the beginning of February because I had some family stuff going on, and I couldn't really see California getting to the place that I wanted it to be yet. But there was this one day where I was like, no, this is my last semester of college. I want to try. I want to attempt to make it what I want to. And so I didn't stay in my hometown. I went back out. And after being out of this semester now, seeing how much growth and how much fun and how much joy it brought me, oh my gosh. Like if I had not made that decision, no, exactly. So I think you have to be always open minded to knowing, oh, there is always a possibility that I'm making a wrong decision here, that I'll benefit by just
Yeah.
revisiting a decision. So,
Yes, revisiting, like, and just being so open to hearing your gut and listening to that inner voice. And again, whether it's spiritually charged or not, I mean, for me it is, but it is like that guiding voice in the back of your head. Like, listen to that, listen to what it's
conscience.
saying, and follow that, because that's going to lead you to ultimately being content long term. Because sometimes your actual like ego and just your logical self isn't going to pick what's actually right for you, and sometimes you aren't going to fully see the plan, because we think that we can see into the future and that we can visualize how everything's going to work out, but there's always that X factor.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Definitely. And to go off of that a little bit, I do want to sort of say when I was, when it was our sophomore year, after like going through some immune system decline stuff and I don't even a series of events, I started to be a lot less spontaneous, and I noticed that. And Ella, you noticed that in me for sure. The pandemic didn't really help it either. I think it kind of put everybody in a little bit more of a control freak state for at least a little bit. But actually, I think that the pandemic freed me up a lot. It taught me how to let go, and then that was the perfect like catalyst going into this past semester where I was really able to let go. And some of the most fun moments, like even Joshua Tree of this semester, like are my favorite because they were spontaneous, because I was just like, you know what, this is all I have. I'm going to just do what I can, control what I can.
yeah,
But like that growth within myself is something that I'll really take away from college. And I want to carry on for as long as possible, because as long as you're being smart and still taking care of yourself, like you can still be that spontaneous person. You can still do spontaneous, maybe slightly reckless and stupid things sometimes, and they pan out to be so fun. So you don't want to live with that, being regretful of it either. Yeah.
no, yeah,
That
that's
did
great
follow along the
advice.
same theme, right? I think
Yeah,
so.
that was really awesome. I love that. I don't know if I have, I feel like those are all my main words of wisdom. I I did write an entry called Curate Your Life, but I haven't published it yet. So that will kind of get into that. But that is a theme that I also kind of picked up on at the end of college and throughout my college experience, which I truly believe that that, that we have so much opportunity in America. There's so much at our fingertips with the internet and the
People to
gig
meet.
economy and people to meet and networking and LinkedIn and all these things. And I feel very um I feel very proud of myself for where I got, especially like professionally, and with my resume. And I really like everything that I wanted to do, like I did make it happen. Like even the craziest things, like living in New York, even though I didn't make it because of the pandemic, I did secure an apartment and a job, right? And I made it happen to save up money to go abroad to Europe, and I made it happen so that I could go to the college of my dreams that I wanted to go to. And I wanted to do real estate, and I figured out how to make that happen. So I'm a big component in if you're taking the time on the front end to work through and really sit in a quiet room and listen to yourself, and whether it's through journaling, through praying, through meditation, through conversations with friends, just really discerning what is my vocation in life, and then making action steps that are achievable over a certain duration of time. Like you can do anything, and I truly believe that because I've experienced that. I went into college very not very academically advanced. I struggled with reading. I found out when I was 16 that I had the reading level of a third grader. And obviously, people have way bigger adversities than that. But I went into college thinking that I was on the dumber scale, especially book wise. And I ended up completely changing that narrative. And all it was a mind shift. You know, you're in a new environment and you're ready to rewrite your own life story. And it's totally possible.
Yes.
So I
Well,
want
first
people
step is
to know that.
mind shift, and then also putting in the work. And you put in the work. Like anything's possible when you put in the work sometimes, and thinking
Yeah.
proactively and taking steps proactively instead of just doing it like shooting from the hip all the time. Like it can definitely pay off.
Yeah. And that's even what this podcast was. Like, I mean, Jordan, you can kind of go next, but I wanted from a very young age to put my thoughts out into the world for them to live. And I mean,
Me
when we were
too.
little, when we were younger, the internet was, it was just picking up and YouTube was becoming more of a thing. And then I got into high school and I got really like nervous to share what I thought about the world. I didn't want to talk about my religious beliefs. I didn't want to talk about my ethical stances on things. I didn't want to talk about my political views. And I was a little bit more open about that. But I really didn't want to talk about what I believed, even in circumstances that made sense for me to say something. Obviously, you don't want to always be preaching to people when they don't want to hear it. But this, you know, and in college, I always kept telling myself I'd listen to all these people that were free and able to say their peace of mind and put it out into the world. And I was like, oh, one day I'll do this. Like, oh, once I'm out of college and not in this conformity environment, then I'll start a podcast, then I'll start a YouTube channel, right? But no, like you have to.
There's no perfect time. If you're
There's
sitting
no
around waiting
perfect
for a
time.
time, you're never going to find it. You kind of just have to
No.
be like, you know what? This could be the worst time ever. This could be, I'm not even in the mindset of it, but just do it. Because if you feel called and know that you will do it at some point or that you want to at some point, then don't wait around. Because that's, yeah, like we said, that, you know, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
No, you don't. And I mean, even though the podcast didn't start off with what the vision is now, it did start, and that's the most important part. And I'm sure in the next few years the vision is going to change a lot from what we think it is now, right? So it's constantly adapting as we're growing, and we're open to that room for that flexibility.
Mhm.
And I'm just really grateful that we made that first step in our little orange house
I
not too
know.
long ago.
I feel like right now, whoever's listening to this, you might go, oh, well, they just moved out of their house. Like everybody does that. Everyone moves. Everyone is traveling. Everybody has a house that they move out of at some point in their lives, whether it be childhood or college or apartment, etc. But for us, I feel like because we have stated and because we repeatedly tell each other that we never want to give this up, that we enjoy it that much, and that it's helped us grow so much, and that we don't see it stopping anytime soon. Um, us leaving that house, which was the birth of this and our friendship and the catalyst for at least sitting in that kitchen and starting to record, I do think that this is a big I guess a big milestone that we don't have that anymore. So we're gonna enter another phase. We're so excited. Once Ella moves back to Arizona from Houston, which is where I'm at right now. I mean, nothing is completely set in stone, but as of right now, I think we're
Yeah.
thinking that we want to get back in person, be in the same 2 feet distance with each other so we can talk and look at each other and get
Not
really
share a
into it again. And we
screen.
want to get back to our routine because we were in it for a while. And
Yeah.
we're going to try to keep this up throughout the summer. But I think that once that like August, September, those weeks roll around, we'll be in like game mode.
Yeah, I think we'll be in more of a routine, which will be awesome. And at the end of the day, we're not giving this up. It's come too far, and it's now part of who I am. So,
Yes, it is.
well, Jordan, do you have anything else? I think we kind of went longer than we kind of envisioned, so I apologize to our speakers.
Yes, true. This is supposed to be just a check in, just to let you guys know we're still here and
We're live, and
to
we're
share some
breathing.
final thoughts on college and Chapman and yeah, Ella, once you get that entry up, we'll definitely post something about that. I'll plug it here now. actually did publish one, and it kind of goes a little bit more in depth on the move out of Orange, which was like the city where we were living, and it's definitely a testament on Orange. So it's a little bit of a different vibe than kind of what we've been talking about in this episode right now. But
It's
yeah,
really good. You guys should
definitely check it out. It's on the website, and yeah, that was like definitely my final farewell. So, and this too, but we promise we'll get back to talking about more worldly things and
Yes, and
set in stone topics.
Please comment and subscribe and like and give us some feedback, and also write down some episode ideas that you guys have, or like things in the news that we want to talk about. Honestly, something I've been learning a lot about recently is like the Palestine Israel thing.
Ooh.
So I'm kind of like all open to whatever. So please give us suggestions or.
Me too. Throw it at me. I honestly love researching. I love delving into something and getting into that. Like, it's kind of like an actor preparing for a role, or you get into that character. You like have to train your vocab to be like speaking on whatever that is that we're focused on. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. Maybe that'll be the next game plan for whatever episodes fall in this one.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and tune in next time.
Thanks, guys. We miss you, but we're back. Bye.